Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the 10th Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit at Gandhinagar, says that the world looks at India as an important pillar of stability and a friend that can be trusted. India says at the UN that there is no justification for terrorism and hostage-taking, condemns civilian deaths in the Israel-Hamas conflict. Armed men storm a TV studio during live broadcast in Ecuador. Country's president names 22 gangs as terrorist groups and military targets. China threatens new trade measures against Taiwan ahead of the 13th January election on the island. Taipei accuses Beijing of election interference. And World Bank keeps its growth projection for India unchanged at 6.4% on account of strong domestic demand and private sector credit growth. Celebrating 20 years of Vibrant Gujarat as the summit of success, world leaders took part in the 10th edition of Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit at India's Gandhinagar Mahatma Mandir Convention and Exhibition Centre. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed the delegates. The Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, the Presidents of the UAE, Mozambique and Timor-Leste, and the Deputy Prime Minister of Vietnam are attending the event. Prime Minister Modi was seen standing with the world leaders for a family photograph. Prime Minister Modi, speaking at the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit, hailed India's efforts in shaping global future. He said the theme of the summit is Gateway to the Future.
वाइब्रेंट गुजरात ग्लोबल समिट की इस बार की थीम है गेटवे टू द फ्यूचर। 21वीं सदी की दुनिया का फ्यूचर हमारे साझे प्रयासों से ही उज्जवल बनेगा। भारत ने अपनी G20 प्रेसिडेंसी के दौरान भी ग्लोबल फ्यूचर के लिए एक रोडमैप दिया है। वाइब्रेंट गुजरात ग्लोबल समिट के इस एडिशन में भी इस विजन को और आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। भारत I2U2 और दूसरे मल्टीलेटरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ पार्टनरशिप को लगातार मजबूत कर रहा है। वन वर्ल्ड, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर का सिद्धांत विश्व कल्याण की अनिवार्य आवश्यकता है।
Suzuki Motors President Toshihiro Suzuki said India's automobile industry is growing rapidly.
Suzuki Group will invest 3,200 crore rupees in Suzuki Motor Gujarat to add a new fourth production line, which can produce 2.5 lakh units per year. This will increase the annual production capacity of Suzuki Motor Gujarat from the current 7.5 lakh to 1 million units. Thirdly, we will invest 35,000 crore rupees for the construction of a second car plant in Gujarat, which would produce another 1 million units per year.
India's famed business person and chairperson of Reliance Industries hailed Prime Minister Modi as the most successful Prime Minister in India's history. Praising the country's rising economy, he said no power on earth can stop India from becoming a $35 trillion economy.
Now, as Prime Minister of India, your mission is दुनिया के विकास के लिए भारत का विकास. You are working on the mantra of global good and make India the world's growth engine. The story of your journey from Gujarat to the global stage in just 2 decades is nothing short of a modern epic. Today, and in today's India, is the best time for young people to enter the economy, to innovate, and to provide ease of living and ease of earning to hundreds of millions of people. No power on earth can stop India from becoming a $35 trillion economy by 2047.
Gautam Adani, the chairperson of Adani Group at the summit, vowed more investments in Gujarat state along the western coast of India. His investments will be more focused on green and renewable energy.
Today, I commit to further investments. We are constructing the world's largest green energy park in Khavda district, Kutch, generating 30 gigawatt of our renewable energy over 725 square kilometers. Even visible is from space. We are expanding the green supply chain for an Atmanirbhar Bharat and creating the largest integrated renewable energy ecosystems. Over the next 5 years, the Adani Group will invest over rupees 2 lakhs crore in Gujarat.
All right, shifting focus to the Indo-Pacific now. The launch of a Chinese satellite that flew over Taiwan has triggered a political storm on the island, which will be holding its presidential elections this week. Taiwan's presidential office said that it did not consider the satellite launch as China's attempt to interfere with the election. But the opposition party cornered the government over an erroneous air raid alert issued at the time of the launch. China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan, has time and again been accused of pole meddling by the island. China has slammed the U.S. over a meeting between Taiwan's de facto ambassador to Washington, D.C. and U.S. Speaker, saying that it opposes any form of official exchanges with Taipei. In a first, the diplomat met with Speaker Mike Johnson. Taiwan's foreign ministry said that the diplomat thanked the U.S. legislature for its long-term cross-party support for Taiwan and commitment to strengthening the island's defenses. This was the first time the two had met. The U.S. is Taiwan's most important arms supplier despite the lack of formal diplomatic ties with the island, which China views as its own territory. Earlier, Chinese balloons were spotted over Taiwan Strait. DD India's Andrew Wood has more. Take a listen.
The main significance is to find out how much that China's rather aggressive and belligerent stance towards Taiwan, the stick rather than the carrot, is working or not. Over the past year or two, Taiwan has been increasingly the subject of People's Liberation Army Air Force planes, warplanes flying into areas, into airspace that Taiwan considers its own, and warships from the Navy as well, the mainland Chinese Navy, going into what Taiwan considers its territorial waters. In the recent past month or two, we've seen more of these weather balloons, as China calls them, flying near to Taiwan or over the island of Taiwan. And we'll see whether all of that huffing and puffing is actually making Taiwanese voters more in favor of closer links with the mainland of China by voting for the opposition. I think one of the problems with this election is that the DPP can present all sorts of arguments against dealing with the mainland of China. The problem is that China doesn't really promote anything positive, doesn't really say much in the way of the positive benefits of unification with the mainland. I think this would be a very, very big shock if the opposition did win. At first, of course, I think that the outgoing government would probably publish just about every scrap of information that they had about what it might consider interference by the mainland of China in the election.
In some more news, the Indo-Pacific, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. of the Philippines met with his Indonesian counterpart Joko Widodo for talks in Manila on Wednesday. They discussed about developments in the South China Sea. They also spoke about other regional issues besides cooperation among ASEAN members.
The Philippines and Indonesia affirmed our insistence on the universality of UNCLOS, which sets out the legal framework that governs all activities in the oceans and in the seas.
I would like to convey three things. First, in the field of politics and security, we have agreed to a strengthened border cooperation, and I have conveyed the importance of accelerating the revisions of the Border Patrol Agreement and Border Crossing Agreement, the settlement of continental self-boundaries, and the strengthening of defense cooperation, including defense equipment.
South Korea's police have revealed the motive behind the stabbing attack on opposition leader Lee Jae-myung. They said the alleged attacker wanted to prevent Lee from becoming the country's president. Earlier this week, Lee was attacked by a 67-year-old man during a public event in Busan City. Lee was discharged from the hospital on Wednesday.
The suspect stated that he held a grudge that the victim Lee was not properly punished, and he wanted to prevent the victim from becoming president, stop him from giving nominations to certain groups and taking a majority of seats in the upcoming general election.
Amidst condemnation from the Western nations, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited his country's arms factories this week. The North Korean leader can be seen inspecting mobile short-range missile launch vehicles in the arms factories to step up its military capabilities for self-defense. To South America now. In Ecuador, at least 10 people have been killed in a series of attacks blamed on gangs as the country exploded in what President Daniel Noboa called an internal armed conflict. President Noboa gave orders to neutralize criminal gangs after gangsters declared war following the prison escape on Sunday of one of Ecuador's most powerful narco bosses. Police said 8 people were killed and 3 wounded in attacks in a port city. 2 officers were murdered by armed criminals in a nearby town as well. Ecuador's armed forces said that designating criminal gangs as terror groups makes them a military target. The announcement came on the day a TV station was attacked during a live broadcast. An admiral said that the country's armed forces will defend the nation and crack down on those who seek to destabilize the country and unleash chaos. Meanwhile, 3 Ecuadorian police officers who were kidnapped in Machala were seen walking free. Police handout footage released on Tuesday showed.
From this moment, all terrorist groups identified in the President's decree are military targets. The present and the future of our homeland is at stake. We will not step back nor negotiate. Public good, justice and order can't ask for permission. We will not bow our heads in front of terrorists. We are acting with firmness and strength against any destabilizing and chaos attempt that they intend to bring in our national territory.
Peru's government on Tuesday declared an emergency along its northern border with Ecuador after a surge in violence by criminal gangs in the neighboring country. Peru's Prime Minister Alberto Otarola said that the emergency declaration would deploy an unspecified number of army troops to support the country's police forces.
We will declare an emergency all the northern border because in November we declared a state of emergency that's already in force and it's applied on Tumbers and Piura. But we will declare the emergency in other border regions which are Amazons, Cajamarca and Loreto.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. US and UK forces shoot down 21 drones and missiles fired by the Houthis. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky claims a slowdown in Russia's defense industry. And a 3-day strike by railway workers adds to travel chaos in Germany.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is currently on a trip to West Asia, has urged Israel to make hard choices to normalize relations with more of its neighbors. Blinken called on Israel to support Palestinian leaders willing to live peacefully alongside Israelis. The US Secretary of State, who met with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said it was also vital that Israel achieve its objective of eradicating the threat from Hamas. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has said that it was fighting against Hamas and not the people of Gaza. Take a listen.
As a moral military committed to international law, we are making vast efforts to minimize harm to the civilians that Hamas has forced into the role of human shields. Hamas attacks Israelis and then takes shelter behind Gazans because Hamas seeks the suffering of Israelis and Gazans. We are concerned by the suffering of civilians in Gaza. In this war that Hamas started, we are concerned because our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza. We're going to live next to them.
As the conflict in West Asia rages on, Israel claimed the death of a Hezbollah commander in an airstrike. The Israeli army says the Hezbollah commander, Ali Hussein Barji, had led an attack on an Israeli army base in northern Israel. Barji was also involved in dozens of drone attacks on Israel in the 17 years of deadliest hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah.
In the north, we killed the southern Lebanon commander of Hezbollah aerial unit, Ali Hussein Barji, also known as Abu Mehdi. He was killed in the airstrike by the Air Force. Ali has led dozens of drone attacks on Israel.
For its part, Hezbollah refuted the claims. It said that the commander was never subjected to any assassination attempt. Meanwhile, the US and UK forces shot down 21 drones and missiles fired by the Houthis on Tuesday. The incident took place in the southern Red Sea in the direction of the international shipping lanes. The US military reported no injury or damage. It said this was the 26th attack by Houthis on commercial shipping lanes in the Red Sea since 19th November. Attacks by Houthis have taken extraordinarily disruptive to international shipping, causing some companies to suspend transits through the Red Sea and instead take the much longer and costlier journey around the continent of Africa. And joining me is my colleague Trent Murray in Tel Aviv. Trent, good to see you. Do you think US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Israel has succeeded in expanding the scope for peace?
Well, that is certainly the ambition by America's top diplomat, Ramesh. We know Secretary Blinken has travelled here to Israel after holding talks with a number of the key regional players here, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and he really brought to Israel a message from them, I think, which was a desire from Israel's neighbours to halt its military operations and to announce a ceasefire. But certainly the rhetoric we are hearing out of Tel Aviv is that that is not something that will happen anytime soon. In fact, the Israeli army says it's expanding operations further, particularly in the south part of the Gaza Strip around Khan Yunis. It says that there it believes the leadership of Hamas is currently hiding out in the underground tunnel network, and they are pushing to, in their words, hunt them down. But we do know that there is increased concern, not just about the immediate situation within the Gaza Strip as the humanitarian crisis escalates, but also what happens next. The Israelis have floated this plan of them continuing to maintain security there even after the war, effectively keeping boots on the ground, but handing civilian affairs over to Palestinian political factions. The difficulty, though, for them is they say that those factions just cannot include Hamas. That is a red line for them that they will not accept. But many of Gaza's neighbours, including Egypt and Jordan, says that that is an unrealistic goal because Hamas is so embedded within the political system. So, look, I think it's a very delicate diplomatic tightrope that Secretary Blinken is trying to walk here. We know he's up in the occupied West Bank today talking to the leader of the Palestinian Authority, President Abbas. There certainly has been a push from Washington for the PA up there in the West Bank to potentially play a greater role in Gaza moving forward.
Indeed. And what can you tell us about the situation at the Israel-Lebanon border? Are the Israeli forces engaged in combat with the Hezbollah?
Oh, they certainly are. I mean, we've seen more strikes in the past couple of hours launched by the IDF on southern Lebanon. The situation there remains incredibly tense. We saw earlier this week a large flurry of rockets target an Israeli army base, the Northern Command headquarters. Now, in response, we've seen these targeted assassinations, including of Wassim Tawil, who was a senior commander of an elite special forces group of Hezbollah. We also saw, of course, that airstrike on Beirut last week targeting the deputy leader of Hamas. It really does appear that tensions do continue to ratchet up there, and that has got diplomats here very concerned, because if there was to be a full-blown war between Hezbollah and Israel, it would be absolutely devastating for both sides. By some estimates, Hezbollah possesses an arsenal of around 150,000 missiles and rockets, more than many countries. And so I think that's why you're seeing the diplomats desperately trying to dial down the tensions there to avoid this conflict expanding to a new and very dangerous northern front.
Also, Trent, if we were to zoom out and look at the region as a whole, how's the region dealing with the security and economic fallout of the relentless missile attacks by the Houthis? Latest reports say that the US and UK forces have shot down 21 drones and missiles fired by the Houthis on Tuesday alone.
Yeah, well, look, another arena that we are watching with real concern that it's a flashpoint again for this conflict expanding. That 21 missiles and drones that the US and UK is saying they shot down, that represents the largest attack by the Houthis since November, when this all began. It's worth noting that they made that attack just days after the US and UK warned them not to do exactly what they did, saying there would be deadly consequences if there were. There are some suggestions, including in the Times of London, for example, that the US and UK have prepared to launch airstrikes on Yemen in order to respond to the Houthis. We're not suggesting that could happen, but it's certainly being discussed. In terms of the economic fallout, well, about 12% of the world's global trade travels through the Red Sea. It's really the main highway between Europe and India and Asia, and so there is disruption there. As you said, many ships now making that journey around the Cape of Good Hope, the continent of Africa. It adds about 11 days to their journey, and also a lot of money to the cost of transiting goods. And so you're already seeing some companies like IKEA, just as one example, saying that because of the situation in the Red Sea, there's now going to be delays in the deliveries of their goods to customers.
Trent, thank you. That was my colleague Trent Murray reporting from Tel Aviv. Moving on, Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock called for a 24-hour opening of Egypt's Rafah border for better access to aid in Gaza. Baerbock said that 3,000 fully loaded trucks with aid supplies intended for 1.9 million people in Gaza were stuck and unable to enter the enclave. The border crossing is currently the only one open during daylight hours. Israel requires its own inspection of goods before delivery, so trucks are often stuck at the Rafah crossing for days on end.
At the same time, we need much better access for the aid organizations. The trucks that are piling up here now, 3,000 fully loaded trucks that are piling up here in Al Arish to supply 1.9 million people a few kilometers away in Gaza. These trucks can no longer wait for days at this bottleneck here in Rafah. We need a border crossing that can function here around the clock. We'll do everything in our power to achieve this. But above all, we need more access points from Israel.
Meanwhile, India reiterated its stand on the Hamas-Israel conflict by saying that dialogue and diplomacy are the only way forward. At the UN General Assembly, India's permanent representative, Doordarshan Kamboj, condemned the loss of civilian lives and said that humanitarian crisis was alarming and not acceptable.
That the leadership of India is in constant touch with the leaders of the region, including those of Israel and Palestine. India has so far provided 70 tons of humanitarian aid, including 16.5 tons of medicine and medical supplies in 2 tranches to the people of Palestine. The message that India has conveyed since the start of this conflict is clear and consistent. It is important to prevent escalation, to ensure continued delivery of humanitarian aid, and to work towards an early restoration of peace and stability. A peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward.
Right, moving on, the Russian and Ukrainian armies continue to exchange fire on Wednesday, with each claiming to have hit the other's military targets. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that there were clear signs of a slowdown in Russia's defense industry. He called for further action to eliminate loopholes in sanctions imposed on Moscow. Russian officials have meanwhile said that production of military equipment has been stepped up. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby announced a joint statement by the U.S. and its partners that opposed arms transfers between North Korea and Russia, including Russia's procurement of North Korean ballistic missiles and Moscow's use of the missiles against Ukraine.
I'm announcing that the foreign ministers of 47 countries, Secretary Blinken, and the High Representative of the European Union have released a joint statement condemning the DPRK's export and Russia's procurement of North Korean ballistic missiles, as well as Russia's use of these North Korean missiles against Ukraine. As the statement makes clear, the transfer of these weapons increases the suffering of the Ukrainian people, supports Russia's war of aggression, and undermines the global non-proliferation regime. And our governments stand together in resolute opposition to these arms transfers between the DPRK and Russia.
In some other news, in Germany, commuters are facing train cancellations across the country from Wednesday. A 3-day nationwide rail strike has added to travel chaos in the country, where an ongoing farmers' protest has also snarled road traffic. A train drivers' union began its strike in the early hours of Wednesday, following one by cargo train drivers who walked out on Tuesday evening. The strikes will continue until Friday evening, forcing national rail operator Deutsche Bahn to run only stripped-back emergency timetables. Meanwhile, German farmers have blocked roads across the country against the government's plan for phase-out of agricultural subsidies. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. U.S. court questions Donald Trump's claims that he is immune from criminal charges. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visits the Swaminarayan Temple in London. And Hindu devotees from Nepal come bearing gifts for the consecration of the Ram Temple at Ayodhya.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the 10th Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit at Gandhinagar. Gateway to the Future is its theme this year. India says at the UN that there is no justification for terrorism and hostage-taking, condemns civilian deaths in the Israel-Hamas conflict. An armed men storm a TV studio during live broadcast in Ecuador. Country's president names 22 gangs as terror organizations and military targets. Right, going back to the top story, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the 10th Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit at Gandhinagar. Gateway to the Future is its theme this year. Now, India and the UAE have signed agreements for new investments worth billions of dollars in India's port infrastructure. While speaking at the summit, PM Modi said these agreements will bring transformative changes to India.
इस समिट में भी भारत और यूएई ने फूड पार्क्स के विकास के लिए, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के क्षेत्र में सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए, इनोवेटिव हेल्थ केयर में निवेश के लिए कई महत्वपूर्ण समझौते किए हैं। भारत के पोर्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में यूएई की कंपनियों द्वारा कई बिलियन डॉलर के नए निवेश पर सहमति बनी है। यूएई के सॉवरेन वेल्थ फंड द्वारा गिफ्ट सिटी में ऑपरेशन शुरू किए जाएंगे। ट्रांसवर्ल्ड कंपनी यहां एयरक्राफ्ट और शिप लीजिंग एक्टिविटीज भी शुरू करने जा रही है।
Mr. Eric Solheim joins us from Gandhinagar. Mr. Solheim is a former head of UN Environment. Mr. Solheim, welcome to DD India. Good to see you. First up, what are your first impressions about this year's Vibrant Gujarat Summit, Mr. Solheim?
Look, Gujarat, of course, has been so central to modern history of India with Gandhiji, Patel, and of course, Prime Minister Modi himself. And it's now leading India into the future with an enormous, vibrant development of solar, wind, and green hydrogen. The Adani Group, for instance, have huge plans for all this in Gujarat. And what we just heard Prime Minister Modi say about the partnership with United Arab Emirates is, of course, great news for India, but great news for the world. It shows that India will move very, very fast into this green future.
I'd like you to expand on what you just said. How would you describe India's trade and investment policy under Prime Minister Modi, one that also balances the needs of green growth and sustainable development?
Look, let's be honest. India historically had a huge problem with red tape and with a somewhat closed domestic market. Now India is opening up to the world. Prime Minister Modi is doing his very best to cut red tape and reduce the bureaucracy. And this is, of course, what international investors want to see, because then it's easier for them to come in and support the green developments of India. And all the missions which are launched by Prime Minister Modi, green hydrogen mission for India, electric battery mission for India, electric car mission for India, all this is very, very helpful to driving the green development. India now has the highest economic growth of any major nation in the world. And that growth is more and more going green, thanks to good policies, but of course also thanks to the vibrant business, the Adanis, the Reliance, the Tatas, but also this enormous forest of small and medium-sized companies who want to be part of this green development of India.
Mr. Solheim, I want us to delve a bit more into this year's summit in particular. Now, Prime Minister Modi has met world leaders and CEOs of global corporations. How do you view India's outreach to foreign investors? Is there scope, for instance, for doing more in sectors such as green energy?
There's always room to do more because India has an enormous potential for green energy. China is the biggest solar country in the world, but India will very, very soon be the second biggest solar country in the world. In Gujarat, there is a huge potential for offshore wind, and that's an energy form with very few, if any, environmental consequences, which can provide a lot of energy. And that energy can also be transformed into green hydrogen. That's exactly the plan of Adani in the Mundra port of Gujarat. So the potential for going very fast and going very big into the renewables, creating jobs and prosperity at home, not wasting money to buy oil and gas from other parts of the world, but base the development of Indian resources. And so going big economically while providing for a better planet and caring more for Mother Earth, all the same. This potential is now enormous, and India is really on the path to that takeoff.
And last but not the least, Mr. Solheim, how do you describe or characterize the cooperation between India and the Nordic countries? Anything particular on your to-do list for India and the Nordics?
Absolutely. My nation, Norway, is one of the co-sponsors of the Vibrant Gujarat Forum, and we are very proud to do that. Where Norway may have a contribution to this green development in India will largely be in sectors like shipping and anything sea-related, because we are a big shipping nation. We're also big on fish farming and fishing, and there may be also areas for cooperation. And of course, Norway has a long tradition for hydroelectric power and some of the renewables. So we are a small player compared to the enormous market of India and the enormous potential of Indian business. But the Nordic countries are very, very happy to work with India. Relationship are all good. And let's see how we can also partner for this great journey into the future.
Mr. Solheim, pleasure as always to talk to you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, moving on. Former U.S. President Donald Trump remained confident even as an appeals court questioned his claims that he is immune from criminal charges for trying to overturn the 2020 election. During a hearing at an appeals court, Trump's legal team maintained that former presidents cannot be prosecuted for actions they took in office. U.S. prosecutors argue that Trump was acting as a candidate, not a president, when he encouraged his supporters to storm the country's legislature on 6 January 2021. Meanwhile, Trump has called the hearing political persecution.
When they talk about threat to democracy, that's your real threat to democracy. And I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple. A president has to have immunity. And the other thing is I did nothing wrong. We did nothing wrong.
Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun told a staff meeting on Tuesday that the plane maker would need to work to earn the confidence of airlines and ensure that the companies understand that every Boeing plane in the sky is safe. Calhoun paid tribute to the Alaska Airlines crew for their handling of a 737 MAX 9 blowout. Right, we'll interrupt our broadcast there to bring you the latest visuals from Gandhinagar of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting his Czech counterpart. These are the latest visuals of the meeting between Mr. Modi and Petr Fiala, the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, on the margins of the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit that began in Ahmedabad this morning. Mr. Fiala is one of several world leaders invited to the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit taking place at Gandhinagar. Among the leaders of Timor-Leste, Mozambique and other countries. Right, if you're just tuning in to this broadcast, we're getting you the latest visuals from Gandhinagar of the meeting between the two leaders there. Right, moving on, Dubai secures top spot in TripAdvisor Travelers' Choice Awards in 2024. Dubai has clinched the title, marking its third consecutive win. This achievement sets a historic milestone, making Dubai the first city to accomplish such a feat in succession. Dubai's repeated recognition as the world's favorite destination underscores its vibrant offerings, supported by top-notch infrastructure and exceptional service. In Pakistan, an Islamabad Accountability Court has indicted the country's former Prime Minister and Tehreek-e-Insaf Party chief Imran Khan and his wife Bushra Bibi in the Tosha Khana reference. In a hearing held on Tuesday, Imran Khan, his spouse and lawyers Shoaib Shaheen and Omar Niazi appeared in court. As the proceedings commenced, the judge indicted Khan and his wife and read out loud the charges framed against them. Media reported that Imran Khan denied the charges, saying that he was waiting for the day when he would meet the approvers who had testified against him, claiming that people were kidnapped, after which they became witnesses. The court subsequently adjourned the hearing till 11th January and directed the NAB to produce the witnesses in the case at the next hearing. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited the BAPS Swaminarayan Temple in London. Appreciating the community, the minister said that the Swaminarayan family has done commendable work by serving the people and caring for humanity. With preparations gearing up ahead of the consecration ceremony of Ram Temple at Ayodhya, the Central Industrial Security Force has taken over the security of the Maharishi Valmiki International Airport at Ayodhya Dham. The move is aimed to ensure error-free security throughout the duration of the ceremony. Meanwhile, more than 500 devotees from Nepal have brought around 3,000 gifts, including silver shoes, gold and silver ornaments, fruits, sweets and clothes for the consecration ceremony at Ayodhya. The majority of gifts consist of dry fruits and traditional sweets of the region. Lord Ram is considered as Nepal's son-in-law. The gifts were handed over to the Sri Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Kshetra Trust by the chief priest of Ram Janki Temple in Janakpur, which is the birthplace of goddess Sita. The Speaker of India's western state of Maharashtra is expected to announce a verdict on disqualification petitions filed by two warring Shiv Sena lawmakers. Speaker Rahul Narvekar said that the decision will be legally sustainable. The disqualification petitions were filed by both Shiv Sena's Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray factions, seeking disqualification under the anti-defection law of 56 lawmakers of the undivided Shiv Sena. Earlier in June 2022, Shinde, along with several other lawmakers, rebelled against his then Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, resulting in a vertical split in the party and the toppling of the Mahavikas Aghadi government in the state. Right, now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. Following a severe storm on Tuesday that impacted New York City and the U.S. East Coast, the National Weather Service has predicted adverse weather persisting into Wednesday as commuters grapple with strong winds and rainwater in subway platforms. The death toll from the powerful New Year's Day earthquake that struck Japan has topped 200. Japan's government has deployed 6,300 soldiers from the self-defense forces to quake-hit areas, and a large-scale search operation had started in severely hit areas as well. A majority of landfills across Swan Kiem district in Hanoi have been given a second life. The district authority and residents have recently joined forces to turn unlicensed dumping sites along the Red River into public playgrounds. These renovations are gaining popularity in the city, effectively providing people with more green spaces.
The world comes together to celebrate the linguistic
The World Hindi Day is celebrated on 10th January across the world every year. The day celebrates not just the language, but a cultural bridge that connects people across borders.
The world comes together to celebrate the linguistic treasure that is Hindi on Vishwa Hindi Divas. This day holds immense significance as it marks the global acknowledgement of the Hindi language, bringing together a diaspora of Hindi speakers worldwide. The day is observed to honor the contributions of Hindi speakers and understand the significance of the language. Hindi is spoken by more than 600 million people across the world. After Mandarin and English, Hindi is the third most spoken language in the world. Apart from India, Hindi is spoken in Mauritius, Fiji, Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad, Tobago, and Nepal. Hindi was spoken for the first time in the United Nations General Assembly in the year 1949. Hindi Divas Conference was organized for the first time on 10th of January 1975 in Nagpur, Maharashtra. 122 representatives from 30 countries participated in this conference. In the pursuit of promoting Hindi on a global scale, the Indian government has taken commendable initiatives. In 2014, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over, the government made significant attempts to take Hindi, which is an official language of the Indian government, to the world stage while also giving it domestic encouragement.
On the occasion of World Hindi Day, the cultural arm of India's High Commission in Colombo, the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, organized a two-day conference in the city. The conference was the first of its kind in collaboration with 4 National Universities of Sri Lanka, the Kelaniya University, Rajaratha University, Sri Jayawardhanepura University, and the University of Visual and Performing Arts, in addition to the Karmadevi Memorial College from Basti in India's Uttar Pradesh state.
As our closest neighbor, we are in a belief that Hindi is not only a mode of communication, it is symphony of history, culture, literature, and tradition of India. Though today is a World Hindi Day that you are celebrating, I am not in a position to speak in Hindi language, but I know few words by watching Hindi films and associate with our friends.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. World Bank keeps economic growth projection for India unchanged at 6.4%. Australia beats India in a T20 match, wins the series 2-1. And in tennis, Carlos Alcaraz is raring to go at the Australian Open, where he will seek to dethrone Novak Djokovic.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles, and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger, and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science, and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The World Bank has kept its FY25 economic growth projection for India unchanged at 6.4%, mainly on account of strong domestic demand, rising public infrastructure spending, and strong private sector credit growth. In its biannual Global Economic Prospects report, the World Bank said India was likely to maintain the fastest growth rate among the world's largest economies, but its post-pandemic recovery was expected to slow with an estimated growth of 6.3% in FY24, before recovering gradually to 6.5% in FY26. According to the report, India's GDP growth forecast remains unchanged from June last year. The GDP growth is expected to recover gradually, edging up to 6.4% in FY25 and 6.5% in FY26. The multilateral lender was not as optimistic about the global scenario, though, hobbled by high interest rates, persistent inflation, slumping trade, and a diminished China. The global economy will slow for a third consecutive year in 2024. The Washington, D.C.-based organization forecasts that the world economy will expand 2.4% this year. That will be down from 2.6% growth in 23, 3% in 22, and 6.2% in 2021, which reflected the robust recovery from the pandemic recession of the year 2020. And now to all the news in the world of sport with Abhishek Mahajan. Abhishek, over to you.
Right, a lot is happening in sports, Ramesh. We'll start with cricket. Batter Ali Sahili hammered a 38-ball half-century to lead Australia to 2-1 series win against India in the 3-match T20 series. Healy's initial assault put Australia well ahead, while fellow opener Beth Mooney hit her first 50 of the tour to finish the job. Australia chased 148 with 7 wickets and 8 balls to spare. India's 147 for 6 was the highest first innings total of the series. Shefali Verma's 26 of 17 deliveries at the top and Richa Ghosh's 34 of 28 at the death provided the batting boost. However, figures of 2 for 12 from Annabel Sutherland and 2 for 24 from Georgia Wareham in the quotas of 4 overs apiece proved to be highly influential in the end. Earlier, Australia had won the ODI series after losing the one-off test. And this year's International Purple Fest is India's first of its kind inclusive festival that celebrates persons with disabilities, where unity takes center stage and diversity is celebrated with open arms. DD India's Siddharth Bhardwaj reports from Ground Zero.
I am at the International Purple Fest 2024, and this fest, the main motive is to honor the persons with disabilities. Well, the persons with disabilities are scaling new heights in every sector, and sport is one of them. Moreover, they would want to learn and furthermore enhance their skills in this field.
Welcome to the heart of the International Purple Fest 2024, where the Para Experience Center is not just a stall, but a portal into the incredible world of sports and resilience. Here, individuals of all abilities immerse themselves in the thrill of sports, breaking stereotypes and showcasing their determination. But here's the twist for our able-bodied athletes. Stepping into the shoes of persons with disability is an eye-opening experience.
I find it quite difficult and very interesting. As I was saying that usually you see a person in a wheelchair and you don't appreciate what they're going through and their general experience of moving around. And very interesting to see the difficulties. I think outside in the street is more difficult than that, probably, looking at it. So no, yeah, it's an interesting, enlightening experience.
Further, the Paralympic Committee of India has made a significant contribution here at this stall.
First of all, it's an amazing platform for people like us who are persons with disability. Purple Fest is celebrating diversity. And if there is a awareness fest around disability, I feel sports is an integral part. And every person with disability should learn that there is now an equal opportunity for people to play across different spectrums of disability.
Beyond the games, it's about sharing stories, creating connections, and fostering an environment where abilities shine brighter than limitations.
The Para Experience Center at the International Purple Fest 2024 will certainly provide persons with disabilities a new way to play sport, learn sport, and furthermore, how they can strengthen their skill in the same field. With camera person Shubham Sharma, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in Goa.
All right, several Indian sportspersons bagged Arjuna Award for their exemplary feats on field. They spoke to DD India after receiving the coveted trophy.
स्पोर्ट्स को आपको देखने को मिल रहा है क्योंकि आप कंपेयर कीजिए ना कि हमारे पहले फैसिलिटीज़ कैसी थी अभी कैसी हैं। पहले प्लेयर्स हमारे
गोल्ड मेडल कितने लाते थे, अभी कितने लाते हैं, तो वो सारी चीज़ें चेंजेस आपको भी दिख रहे हैं। और जहाँ तक पब्लिक का सवाल है, जहाँ तक यंगस्टर्स का सवाल है, वो भी बढ़ चढ़कर हिस्सा ले रहे हैं, वो भी पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं टीम कॉम्पिटिशन्स में। तो चेंजेस बहुत हैं और मेरा मानना ये है कि जितना आगे हम जाएंगे, जितना हम जैसे हम अपना यूथ देखते चले आ रहे हैं, जो यंगस्टर्स हैं काफ़ी टैलेंटेड हैं, और भी हमें प्लेयर्स मिलेंगे, तो मुझे लगता है कि इंडिया का और ज़्यादा नाम रोशन होगा, क्योंकि बहुत सारे प्लेयर्स, बहुत सारा टैलेंट अभी आना बाकी है।
Such a prestigious award, like there are so many great sports persons who have received this award, so I'm very happy that I'm going to receive it. This year I have candidates coming up in Canada. I'm looking forward to the event and I want to win the tournament. Yeah. Anand sir has always been my inspiration, like ever since I started playing chess, so he always will be. And I also admire my brother Pragnananda, like whom I'm able to witness his passion and hard work, the work he's doing for the game. He's also my inspiration. 2023 was a very memorable year for me. Completing the Grandmaster title or winning the Women Grand Swiss, I think both of them together are my favorite.
Now, tennis. Carlos Alcaraz is raring to go at the Australian Open, where he will seek to dethrone holder Novak Djokovic and secure a third Grand Slam triumph that would see him reclaim the world #1 spot. Australian Open begins on 14th January. The 20-year-old Spaniard will hope to bury memories of an injury-plagued start last year when he missed the Australian Open, which Novak Djokovic won to climb back to the ranking summit. Alcaraz hit back by capturing his second Grand Slam title at Wimbledon following an epic 5-set final victory over Djokovic. The rivalry could be set for another epic showdown, and once again, the world #1 spot is within reach for Alcaraz. All right, that's all we have in sports. Back to you, Ramesh.
Thank you, Abhishek. Right, a quick question to our viewers. Are you craving the perfect coffee? Look no further than Adam, a robot barista who can make the ultimate cup of it. Created by Rich Tech Robotics, Adam is a 2-armed robot that can also interact with customers, take orders, and make any beverage. Most importantly, he never gets tired. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.